everybody. Welcome to the Warrior Podcast. My name is Frank Lardino, and today I want to really touch on something that has been life-changing for me. Often I talk about mindset, the power of the mind, and today one of the most important topics in mastering the power of our mind is reframing what a bad day is. Imagine if you could get to the point where you never thought that you had a bad day, and it's possible. And I'm going to share some insights with you, things that you can possibly work on where you'll, at a bare minimum, you'll minimize that notion that I'm having a bad day. I'm going to start with a story about Robert Allen. Robert Allen was a World War II veteran. He fought in some horrific battles. He was the father of one of my dear friends on the trading floor, Jeff Allen. And I met Mr. Allen on a fishing trip. We were going on a flying to Canada, and I really had great respect for the man. So his son, Jeff, who was my friend, we had a lot of training in the ring. Jeff was an awesome fighter, and beat the hell out of me. Jeff would tell me stories that his dad shared with him throughout his life. And one of the stories was when Mr. Allen, in his final amphibious landing in World War II, he landed on the island of Iwo Jima. And for those of you who don't know World War II history, Iwo Jima was a terrible battle, tons of casualties. A Marine force landed on the island of Iwo Jima. When the Japanese started their counteroffensive, they were, shooting artillery at both the Marines that had landed on the shoreline and the Marines that were going over the waves in the landing craft to get to the beachhead. And Mr. Allen was in a group of landing craft, and several of them got hit by Japanese artillery, and they blew up. He saw the bodies of his buddies get blown to pieces. And when he got to the shoreline and the door opened, he was under heavy fire. These were his words. He said, "The first thing I saw was a Marine bobbing in the water with his legs blown off, and he was looking at me to help him. He didn't realize it, but he was already dead. I didn't have time to help him, and everything went downhill from there." Think about that. This is an 80-year-old man telling the story about himself when he was 19 years old. That, my friends, is a bad day. And when I heard that story, when my buddy Jeff told me the story about his father, it punched me in the mouth. I'm like, holy crap, that's a freaking bad day. And Jeff went on to tell me another story about his father, because Jeff was a really good basketball player, and I guess his dad used to watch all his games. And one time, the old Marine was not able to get to the game, and he asked his son, "How was your game today, son?" And Jeff said, "Dad, I had a bad day." And here's what the old Marine told his son. He said, "Son, your basketball team is about the size of a Marine squad. So imagine if at the end of the game, you not only lost the game, but other than you and one other guy, everybody else was blown apart dead on the floor. That's a bad day, son, and you'll never know what a bad day is." Think about that for a perspective of what a bad day is. And ever since I heard those two stories, I swear to you, I've never said I had a bad day or I'm having a bad day, because I changed my perspective. I redefined what a bad day is. I don't say I'm having a bad day. And when my sons were growing up and they would say I'm having a bad day, I'd correct them. And I did it so many times by telling them these two stories that at least they don't say it in front of me. Okay. And here's something very important to know about the mind. When we think about something and we repeat thoughts, we create neural networks. We create our reality by continually thinking about I'm having a bad day or I'm having a good day, right? So if we enable the brain to accept, hey, I'm having a bad day, and we continually focus on the bad days that we perceive we're having, then we often default to I'm having a bad day. But more importantly is when we say something out loud, like I'm having a bad day, it's 10 times more powerful in wiring the brain than if we just think it. in neuroscience, they talk about metacognition, and metacognition means I am aware of what I'm thinking and feeling. I am paying attention to what I'm thinking and feeling, right? We're supervising our thoughts, we're overseeing our thoughts. If you can start to redefine what a bad day is, you could do this simply by observing what goes on in the world around you. I was able to redefine bad day by listening to somebody recreate a bad day that they had. I didn't even see it. But if I wanted to see it, all I have to do is look at footage of Normandy or footage of Iwo Jima and watch people get blown apart charging the beaches. To be able to have the power of reframe, you have to pay attention to what goes on around you. And to have the ability to reframe what a bad day is, unfortunately, you have to look at people who really have bad days. And sometimes it's not even an event or something gruesome that you witness. It's just looking at people who have disabilities. One of my favorite speakers, his name is Nick Vujicic, and he was born without arms and legs. He's got two little chicken feet that keep him upright, his torso. He has no arms and no legs. He was able to fight through and make an amazing life for himself. He has a wife and children. It's an amazing story. And we'll talk about him in one podcast will be devoted to him and people like him. So he was able to utilize the power of his mind to overcome like severe physical disabilities. So I could look at Nick Vujicic and say, I've never lived a day like him and not had any limbs. To build a strong mind and to become a warrior and have this warrior mindset, which is part of my mission, we have to pay attention. And a lot of times that means we pay attention to things that are uncomfortable for us to look at, because when we pay attention to things that are uncomfortable for us to look at, it helps us redefine what a bad day is. I'll share another story with you. I was walking into Binny's one day. I saw this big pickup truck pull up. It was one of those that had a high lift on it. It was a big white Dodge pickup truck. And I just happened to glance at the license plate, and the license plate said disabled veteran. So instead of walking into the Binny's, I waited outside the Binny's because he parked and it looked like he was going to come in at Binny's. And I wanted to shake his hand and say, thank you for serving our country. I watched this body inside this truck move from the front seat to the back seat because it was a quad cab. The door opened and I saw an arm extend out from like the floor level of the truck, lowering a wheelchair. And the wheelchair got lowered to the ground, and this guy got out and he climbed on the wheelchair. He had no legs. All right. This guy had no freaking legs. And I waited for him. He wheeled up to the door. I shook his hand. I said, thank you for serving our country. I said, I watched you do your whole thing there. And I said, brother, I'm freaking inspired. And he didn't say much. He went inside. And what wound up happening there was he was there with his buddy, who was also a veteran, to promote a new bourbon that was a veteran-owned company where they made bourbon. And I walked up to them and I started talking with the other guy. And it turns out that the other guy was with him when he got his legs blown off in combat. And he had saved his buddy's life, was the guy with the legs. I mean, that stuff is inspiring, but it also tells me I've never had a day like that. So through the repetitive thought process of defining what a really bad day is and minimizing when I have a challenging day, like I don't say I'm having a bad day, I reword it, which is part of the reframing process, into today there were a lot more movements in my day today, or today I learned a lot about myself today. Today was a longer than average day. You can say things about your day which can convey the type of day you had to another person and even yourself without saying, I had a bad day. And the thing is, some people say that we overuse this term. I had a bad day, or I'm having a bad day. It's a terrible misuse of our precious minutes of life. The more we practice the reframe and the more we pay attention to the things around us that are really bad, like when people are having real hardship, it makes us think, wow, I don't have it that bad. And this is a really good practice to get into. If you can get to the point in your life where you don't hardly ever say, I'm having a bad day, or never, and you can get to that point because I've gotten to that point, then you're living your life without any bad days. Do you think that'd be a pretty incredible way to live? I know it is. So I just wanted to share a little bit of mindset with you. Be very careful when you say bad day. Use your metacognition. Be aware of what you're thinking and feeling. Try to think about people who've really had a bad day. Pay attention and try to minimize your perception that you're having a bad day. And the more that you do it, the more you will extinguish that notion of bad day, period. Then that will also allow you to utilize the power of gratitude more and more. I already did a podcast on gratitude. So we remove the perception of bad out of our head and we put in the perception of good in our head, which is gratitude. I live a life of gratitude. I don't have any bad days because any day above ground to me is a good day. And then the last little mind yoga I wanted to share with you is the perception of the battle in front of you. This may be more of a simplistic example, but I ran 3 Chicago marathons. The first one was the toughest because I didn't train for marathons. I never ran more than 8 miles in my life, and I didn't even plan on finishing the marathon. I was going to try and run half of it with my buddy Phil. There came a point where I got to the 8-mile mark, and I said, well, any mile past 8 miles is a new record for me. So let's go another mile. And then when I got to the 9-mile mark, I said the same thing. I go, well, new personal record. Let me try for the next mile. And I played this little mind yoga with myself. Instead of going, oh my God, I have all these miles left to run, that would be discouraging to me. That would encourage my body to shut down and for me to quit. So it's utilizing the power of your focus and what to focus on and what not to focus on. And we choose that stuff, guys. So when I got to the halfway mark, which is where I was supposed to stop, and Phil had another friend come in was going to help him finish the marathon, I decided to keep going. And when we got to about 18 miles, I think it was, my body was shot and Phil's body was shot. To get to the finish line for me, it became an exercise of small goal setting. 1 more mile. Just do 1 more mile. Instead of going, man, at the 18-mile mark, I still have over 8 miles to go. That had been crushing to me. I would have demotivated myself and I would not have been able to finish. So that's how important the power of focus is, and incrementalizing your focus into maybe just the next step ahead. In other words, if you have an insurmountable task in front of you, instead of going, I have an insurmountable task in front of me, think about the next few steps. Let's say you have a difficult presentation to do at work and you're stressing about it, right? One of the things I do when I have something like that is I say, in an eye blink, it'll be over and I'll be done with it. So don't even think about it. Just go, take a deep breath, get it done. And tonight you'll look back and say, oh, that was nothing. Remember that, things pass. So that's a good focus when you're in some tough times, is to say, oh, I'll get through this. This will pass. And it'll pass quickly. This is the mind yoga. So the mission, my friends, build a strong mind, build a warrior, tenacious center, because we live in a dark world and we are definitely going to need to be the very best versions of ourselves, because the stuff that's happening around the world, it can be very depressing and demotivating. And we don't want to let the darkness in the world push us down. So we have to start utilizing these mind techniques, which I'm well studied on, and I want to share it with everybody so we can unite and start to push back and bring some light into the world. Just finished my book. It's off to the editor now, How to Be a Warrior of Light in a Dark World. That is the mission that I want to push onto mankind. I don't want to just sit on my ass and talk about it. I want to start encouraging people to become warriors. So that's it for today, guys. I hope you enjoyed the podcast. If you like the video, please click the like button and subscribe to my channel if you feel compelled. That will really help get the word out. I love you guys, and remember, there is a warrior inside us all. Take care, everyone.